Hey there, hi there, and ho there. It's me, GameZar. I told you I had a few of these prepared. This is the last one I had prepared, because this is the last bit of flour that I got. We usually run out of flour this time of the month, and that means that we're gonna not have flour for the rest of the month. So this is the last Stoned history of the month. So I hope you guys enjoy it. It's a bit of a doozy. We're going to be talking about the Battle of Gettysburg in the Gettysburg Address. But before we do that, let's smoke. I got some THCA locked and ready to go. Just gotta grind it a little, so we'll be right back. We'll be smoking out of our dry pipe today. Normally we smoke out of our bong, but we don't have a lot of flour, so we gotta make it hit fast and hit hard. And the dry pipe does that. So here we go. I'm probably gonna cough, but 3, 2, 1. And as always, if you like to smoke along, you can do that, although we don't condone or endorse any illegal activities. What we're doing is completely legal in Pennsylvania, so... Told you I was gonna cough. Okay, Gettysburg. Let's talk about that. Whew. The Battle of Gettysburg was a 3-day battle in the American Civil War, which was fought between the Union and the Confederate armies between July 1st and July 3rd, 1863, in and around Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The battle, won by the Union, is widely considered the Civil War's turning point, leading to the ultimate victory of the Union and the preservation of the nation. The Battle of Gettysburg was the bloodiest battle in both the Civil War and of any battle in American history, claiming over 50,000 combined casualties. Union Major General George Meade's Army of the Potomac defeated attacks by Confederate General Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia, halting Lee's invasion of the North and forcing his retreat. It's a pretty important battle. After his success in the Battle of Chancellorsville in Spotsylvania County, Virginia, in May 1863, Lee led his Confederate forces through Shenandoah Valley to begin the Gettysburg campaign. Though his second attempt to invade the North, with Lee's army in high spirits, he intended to shift the focus of his summer campaign from war-ravaged northern Virginia in hopes of penetrating as far as Harrisburg or Philadelphia, which he had hoped would convince northern politicians to end the war. President Abraham Lincoln initially prodded Major General Joseph Hooker into pursuing Lee, then relieved him of command just 3 days before the Battle of Gettysburg commenced, replacing him with Meade. Yep. The first day of the battle. Anticipating the Confederates would march on Gettysburg from the west in the morning of July 1st, Buford laid out his defenses on 3 ridges west of the town: Hare Ridge, McPherson Ridge, and Seminary Ridge. These were appropriate terrain for a delaying action by a small cavalry division against superior Confederate infantry forces, meant to buy time awaiting the arrival of Union infantrymen who could occupy strong defensive positions south of the town: Cemetery Hill, Cemetery Ridge, and Culp's Hill. Buford understood that if the Confederates could gain control of these heights, Meade's army would have difficulty dislodging them. Heth's division advanced with 2 brigades forward, commanded by Brigadier Generals James J. Archer and Joseph R. Davis. They proceeded easterly in columns along the Chambersburg Pike. 3 miles west of town at about 7:30 a.m. on July 1st. The two brigades met with light resistance from vedettes of Union cavalry and deployed into line. According to lore, the Union soldier to fire the first shot of the battle was Lieutenant Marcellus Jones. Eventually, Heth's men encountered dismounted troopers of Colonel Gamble's cavalry brigade. The mounted troopers resisted stoutly, delaying the Confederate advance, with most firing their breech-loaded Sharps carbines from behind fences and trees. Man, I am faded. Sorry. A small number of troopers had other carbine models. A small minority historians have written that some troopers had Spencer repeating carbines and Spencer repeating rifles, but most sources disagree. North of the pike, Davis gained a temporary success against Brigadier General Lysander Cutler's brigade, but was repelled with heavy losses in an action around an unfinished railroad bed cut by the ridge. South of the pike, Archer's brigade assaulted through Herbst, also known as McPherson's Woods. The Union Iron Brigade, under Brigadier General Solomon Meredith, enjoyed initial success under Archer, capturing several hundred men, including Archer himself. General Reynolds was shot and killed early in the fighting while directing troops and artillery placements just east of the woods. Shelby Foote wrote that the Union cause lost a man considered by many to be the best general in the army, end quote. Major General Abner Doubleday assumed command. At Pettigrew's North Carolina Brigade came in line. They flanked the 19th Indiana and drove the Iron Brigade back. As the fighting on the west proceeded, two divisions of Ewell's 2nd Corps, marching towards Cashtown in accordance with Lee's order to the army to concentrate in the vicinity, turned south to Carlisle and Harrisburg roads towards Gettysburg, while the Union 11th Corps, Major General Oliver O. Howard, raced north on the Baltimore Pike and Taneytown Road. By early afternoon, the Union line ran in a semicircle west, north, and northeast of Gettysburg. However, the Union did not have enough troops. Cutler, whose brigade was deployed north of the Chambersburg Pike, had his right flanked in the air. The leftmost division of the 11th Corps was unable to deploy in time to strengthen the line, so Doubleday was forced to throw in reserve brigades to salvage his line. Around 2 p.m., this Confederate 2nd Corps division of Robert E. Rhodes and Jubal Early assaulted and outflanked the Union 1 and 11 Corps positioned north and northwest of town. The Confederate brigades of Colonel Edward E. O'Neill and Brigadier General Alfred Iverson suffered severe losses, assaulting the 1 Corps division of Brigadier General John C. Robinson south of Oak Hill. Barlow was wounded and captured the attack. Major General Winfield S. Hancock assumed command of the battlefield, sent by Meade when he heard that Reynolds had been killed. Hancock, commander of the 2 Corps and Meade's most trusted subordinate, was ordered to take command of the battlefield. Hancock told Howard, "I think this is the strongest position by nature of which a fight at a battlefield that I ever saw." When Howard agreed, Hancock concluded the decision, "Very well, sir, I shall select this as the battlefield." The second day of battle. A lot happened. Attacks going towards the right flank happened. Let's go to the third day of battle. By the third day of battle, Lee wished to renew the attack on Friday, July 3rd, using the same basic plan as the previous day. Longstreet would attack the Union left while Ewell attacked Culp's Hill. However, before Longstreet was ready, Union 11 Corps troops started a dawn artillery bombardment against the Confederates on Culp's Hill in an effort to regain a portion of their lost works. The Confederates attacked, and the second fight for Culp's Hill ended around 11 a.m. Henry fans judged that after some 7 hours of bitter combat, the Union line was intact and held more than strongly before. Lee was forced to change his plans. Longstreet would command Pickett's Virginia Division of his own 1st Corps plus 6 brigades of Hill Corps, and an attack on the Union 2 Corps at the right center of the Union line on Cemetery Ridge. Prior to the attack, all the artillery the Confederacy could bring to bear on the Union positions will bombard and weaken the enemy's lines. And now time for the largest artillery bombardment of the war. Around 1 p.m., from 150 to 170 Confederate guns began an artillery bombardment that was probably the largest of the war. To save valuable ammunition for the infantry attack that they knew would follow, the Army of the Potomac's artillery, under the command of Brigadier General Henry Jackson Hunt, at first did not return the enemy's fire. After waiting about 15 minutes, about 80 Union cannons opened fire. The Army of Northern Virginia was critically low of artillery ammunition, and the cannonade did not significantly affect the Union position. Pickett's charge. Yeehaw, partner. Around 3 p.m., the cannon fire subsided. Pickett's division role in leading the attack is now known as Pickett's charge. As the Confederates approached, there was a fierce flanking artillery fire in the position on Cemetery Hill and Little Round Top area, and musket and canister fire from Hancock's 2 Corps. In the Union center, the commander of artillery held fire during the Confederate bombardment to save it from the infantry assault, which Meade had correctly predicted the day before. However, they opened fire on the Confederate infantry during their approach with devastating results. Although the Union line wavered and broke temporarily at a jog called the Angle and a low stone fence just north of the patch of vegetation called the Copse to Trees, reinforcements rushed into the breach and the Confederate attack was repelled. The farthest advance by Brigadier General Lewis A. Armistead's brigade of Pickett's division at the Angle is referred to as the high water mark of the Confederacy. Union and Confederate soldiers locked in hand-to-hand combat, attacking with their rifles, bayonets, rocks, and even bare hands. Pickett's division lost about 2/3 of its men, and all 3 brigadiers were killed or wounded. The aftermath. The 2 armies suffered between 46,000 and 51,000 casualties. Union casualties were 23,055, 3,500 killed, 14,531 wounded, 5,369 captured or missing, while Confederate casualties are more difficult to estimate for obvious reasons. Many authors have referred to as many as 28,000 Confederate casualties. In addition to being the deadliest battle of the war, Gettysburg is also had the most generals killed in action. Several generals were also wounded. The Confederacy lost Generals Paul Jones Semmes, William Barksdale, William Dorsley Pender, Richard Garnett, and Lewis Armistead, as well as J. Johnson Pettigrew during the retreat after this battle. Confederate generals who were wounded included Major General John Bell Hood, who lost the use of his left arm, and Major General Henry Heth, who received a shot to his head on the first day of battle. Though incapacitated for the rest of the battle, he remarkably survived without long-term injuries, credited due to part of his hat stuffed full of paper. Union generals killed. There was a lot more, by the way, Confederate. I'm just listing a few that were interesting. Union generals that were killed were John Reynolds, Samuel K. Zook, and Stephen H. Weed. That's what I'm fucking talking about! Mr. Weed died, as well as 3 of the brigadier commanders of the 2nd Corps. And now, I will read for you the Gettysburg Address, because that is the real aftermath of the Battle of Gettysburg. Lincoln goes to Gettysburg after the battle, and it's considered one of the most historic speeches of all time, one of the most famous speeches in American history, and we get one of 2 confirmed photos of Lincoln as a result. I will read to you its entirety. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives, that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. These brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work, which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us. That from these honored dead we take increased devotion, that cause for which that gave the last full motion of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from this earth. These are words to think about. That's all I wanted to talk about today. See ya!